Thanks. So what we did last time is we looked into the functionalities of our central nervous system, and particularly zeroed into yeah. Greetings. What we're gonna do today is we'll start off from recapping from where we dropped off last time. We were looking into this nervous system. We looked into the nervous system, and we identified from our last presentation that our nervous system is made up of basically two components, and the two components are speaking of your PNS, which is your peripheral nervous system. And that is what we dwelt into last time. We looked intricately into the functionalities of our peripheral nervous system and what it covers. And then for now, we're going to zero into the central nervous system. And maybe just as a recap, we identified from our previous presentation that the relationship between these two systems constitution what we call our nervous system is that we can look at our CNS as our command center. We can look at it as the command center of our nervous system. In the same vein, we can look at our peripheral nervous system as our front line to our nervous system. Yeah. And again, the other thing that we did last time was to identify the system that our nervous system works with, and we realized that it works with what we call the endocrine system, and how how the two systems work together. They work together in the controlling our body muscles, our muscles of the body. You speak of your skeletal muscles, you speak of your smooth muscles, and also speak of the cardiac muscles, that is referring to our heart. And then with your endocrine system, we're referring to our glands, the glands that are found within our body, and maybe we're looking at the kind of messages that are being conveyed, that are being relayed within this kind of a system, are hormones, and these hormones, as we discovered last time, they are carried in the blood. So what we'll then do for now is we're going to momentarily switch off as far as the peripheral nervous system is concerned, and then we try to zoom out and look into the macroscopic details pertaining to our central nervous system. So there's so many ways at which we can look at our central nervous system. There's a lot that we can say, but basically in simplistic terms, maybe we can start off understanding the central nervous system by looking into what the components, what it is made of, like the physical components that we can talk of before we try and dissect, before we try and get into the macroscopic details pertaining to our central nervous system. So in simplicity, when you have the central nervous system, you just think of your brain, and the other thing that you're supposed to think of is your spinal cord. So your brain is made up of 12 cranial nerves that we're going to get into in detail. And you also realize that your spinal cord is made up of 31 spinal nerves that we shall get to look into. So here's to the story in trying to understand, like before we even try and get into how it functions, the first thing that we're going to look into is the structural, how it's structured, where it's found in our body, and the components and all the other things that we can help to identify, that can contribute into the identification of how our brain and our spinal cord works. So I'm going to try and give a pictorial representation of our central nervous system in a way that will help us to keep in, that will help us to conceptualize everything. So you realize that your cranial nerves, cranial refers to the head, your cranial nerves are found within your brain, and your spinal cord is found within the vertebral column, that is to the dorsal side of your back. That is where you find the cavity of your body. Your spinal cord is found to the dorsal side. So this is what we have here. I'll try and draw a very simple diagram to explain this. So let's say this is our brain, so to speak, with the different forces that you can think of. And then here we go. Something like this. And then what I'm trying to do right now, the first thing that I've drawn is our brain, and now we are moving into the spinal cord. But remember, the spinal cord has got spatial divisions that we also want to look into. Like the first region is called the cervical region. Then after the cervical region, which is this part of the neck, and with this prominent bone, which is your C7, and then it is also made up, the other region that constitutes our spinal cord is the thoracic region. From the thoracic region we get into the lumbar region, and usually it terminates around that, like usually that's the usual case, around your L1 or L2 bone of your vertebral bone of your spinal cord. That is how far it travels, and we need to understand the nerves that we find in there. So here we go. So this is what I normally do for you to try and remember. Like what I said, if you know from anatomy, you realize that your cervical vertebra is made up of 7 bones. So we try to draw the tiny bones here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then here we go. You give a demarcation, and then we move on. I trust that everything will be able to fit in perfectly within the space that I have. And then we have another bone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's another division. That's our thoracic region. Then we move on to the other region. I hope and trust that it's gonna fit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then that is my lumbar region, right? Let me see. It's my lumbar region. Let me go down. The diagram will really help you to appreciate. Like I said that at the time, we said that this is our, which region is this? This is our cervical region, and this part is our This is our thoracic region, and this is our lumbar. This is our lumbar region, and as we said, the spinal cord kind of terminates around this area. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then from there we have our sacral region, which is found within the pelvic bone and the coccygeal. So basically, if you understand your anatomy, it is very easy for you to understand what we are talking about here. So what I'm just trying to do is to give us an overview of how the relationships and also this component, what you have, the first bone that you have is called your atlas, and then the second one is called your axis, whose function is to rotate the head. And maybe I can speak about the number 7, my C7, which is prominent bone, in the sense that you can actually feel it. It protrudes. This is the last bone that you feel. This is the marking the last region, and then what you have here is the thoracic region. But now what we are particularly interested right now is not the anatomy of our vertebral column in terms of the bones, but what we are interested in is interested in talking about the nerves of our spinal cord. And remember when we're speaking of the nerves of the spinal cord, if I say they are sick, in essence they are 12, because it's a pair of nerves that are coming out from the disc, from the spaces that are within your vertebral column. There are holes whereby your nerves originate from, like cascading throughout the regions of the body that they innervate, as we shall get to look into. But for now, what I need for us to understand is, like what I have already alluded to, and we shall get to cover that in depthly. We realize that our brain is made up basically of 12 cranial nerves, and like I alluded to earlier on, cranial refers to the head. When you hear the word cranial, just know that it's referring to the head. When you hear the word cranial, it's referring to the head. Now what we're going to look into are the nerves of your spinal cord. Those are the ones that we are interested in. And together, all these nerves, they form what is known as the central nervous system. So this is your brain, and this is your spinal cord. So I'll try to use a different highlighter. Your number 1, your cranial nerve, number 1, it moves from the top of the bone. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So in essence, from C1 to C7, that is your cervical region. You can call it the cervical plexus if you want to do so, because it's referring to the network of the nerves that are originating from this region of the body. So you realize that there are a total of 8 nerves. Then we move on to our thoracic region. As we said, there are 12 vertebral bones that we find in this region. And now I just need to confirm to make sure that our count is correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Exactly, that's correct. that is, what do you call it, um, 12 nerves, but in essence you say there are actually 24 here, there are actually 16 because it's a pair, so it's rather 8 times 2, 12 times 2, and then at this region again we have how many nerves? 1, 2, 5 again. Let's add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's this region is called your, that region is called your thoracic region. And then we move on to this region, and this region is your lumbar. It's called your lumbar region. And remember, as I alluded to earlier on, you realize that your spinal cord terminates around this area, around the L2 of your lumbar region. That is where it ends. But however, our nerves, they emerge all the way to the last region of our bodies, because we need to innervate all the areas that are found around the spinal cord. We need to send sensory information to the brain, and we also need to relay motor impulses to these regions of the body. So there we have this, we have this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here we have 5, sorry, consistency. We have got 5 nerves, and this is yours. Okay, 5 nerves, and we also have 5 nerves here, and this is your sacral region. And then we move on to this region, which is your coccygeal region, and we have 1 pair of nerves. So in terms of just the side, let's try and add to see the total of what we have. We have 12 and 8, that gives us 20, and that's 10, that gives us 30, and this is 31. So you realize that you've got 31 pairs of cranial nerves, which work to relay information to the body, to your brain. So basically, this is about it as far as understanding how, in terms of the details of the nerves that you find. So you've got your 12 cranial nerves, and then you realize that you've got your 31 pairs of the nerves that you find within your spinal column. And maybe of interest, you might also actually get to realize that from within these main nerves that you have, you find some branches like that stem out from these nerves, and that work so as to innervate different parts of our body. Like for instance, we have our C3 to C5, which is where you find what is known as your phrenic nerve, whose functionality is to innervate the motor actions of your diaphragm, and particularly, actually, all this from C3 to C5, you find your cranial nerve, but specifically C4. that is the one that works so as to control those regions. So now we have looked into our nerves, like just listing them out, not really getting into the intricate details on how they work. So far so good. I believe that this is self-explanatory in a way.